Hello, I am Peter Thorne, and welcome to the first in a live 5-part panel discussion series on anti-violence here on CBC TV 8 in partnership with the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, which you can also view on YouTube at the Division of Youth Affairs. This hour-long program will discuss a series of 5 short films, one every week, which were first premiered at the Olympus Theatres on November 8, 2022, as part of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment's Anti-Violence Initiative. The format consists of the showing of one short film each week, which will then be discussed by our esteemed panel before we invite you to call us and share your valued thoughts and perspectives about how to get rid of the scourge of domestic violence or violence in general that's plaguing our society. The types of violence in these short films, which you will view, are all rated PG, or parental guidance, by the Film Censorship Board of Barbados, and includes physical, sexual, psychological, domestic, and gender violence. The intention of this initiative is to encourage you to make a personal decision and take action to do something within your power now to eradicate violence from our shores. You may ask me why, and I'll say to you that each individual's positive action will influence the community and the national eradication of violence in our nation. Let me now introduce our panel. On my right is the Director of Youth Affairs, Mr. Cleviston Hunte.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening to the viewers and good evening to my fellow panelists.
Special welcome. I also have next to him Ms. Sharon Rose-Gittens. She's President of the Barbados Association of Professional Social Workers.
Good day to all, and it's great being here and also to hear from our viewers. Good evening.
And we also have on the panel the Executive Member of the Barbados Youth Development Council, Shaquani Hunte.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me, Peter.
And we'll be back after the break.
Anti-violence is not just a catchphrase. It is a movement towards positive behavior change in our young and old. How do we accomplish this? Through empowering and educating everyone to make that conscious decision to end the violence. But what is violence? According to the World Health Organization, violence is the intentional use of physical force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or community. This action either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. We all have seen the devastating effects violence can have. We cannot continue to let physical violence, sexual violence, domestic violence, or any type of violence run rampant in our nation. Violence benefits no one. Not me, not you, not our families, our communities, and definitely not our beautiful island Barbados. So let's all work together, join the movement, and end the violence. For more information on the End the Violence campaign, visit us on Instagram and Facebook at End the Violence. End the Violence campaign, an initiative of the Division of Youth Affairs in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment.
Welcome back to the Anti-Violence program. And I'll now ask the Director of Youth Affairs, Mr. Cleviston Hunte, to give us the concept and the background to this anti-violence show.
Right. Thank you, Peter. As you're aware, the ministry would have launched the anti-violence program back in June 2021. The intention was therefore to provide a range and a sustained range of psychoeducational programs, a range of messaging, a range of community social intervention projects in order to reduce the level of violence within the society. The ministry will have heard the outcry from the citizens in relation to the number of the amount of violence which was occurring within the society at that particular point in time. But in addition also to, we were looking also to ensuring that we satisfy those obligations that we have in relation to the number of conventions which the country would have signed on, and also to ensure that the state was also carrying out its due diligence in relation to ensuring that the safety of young people and the safety of people in general was being dealt with as a matter of right. And therefore, the ministry, having seen all of the various issues which were coming up, the issues relating to young people in particular, what we embarked on was this campaign, which hypothesized that if we were able to provide a range of sustained interventions, that the level of violence would diminish. And therefore, we have used a number of platforms, social media, a number of targeted messages. We've gone into schools, we have gone into communities, we have provided a number of national parenting programs. We have provided a number of programs where young people were involved in terms of being able to do essay competitions. And there were a number of other interventions which we have sought to do in order to give young people that opportunity to participate also in dealing with this actual problem. And therefore, we are at a point where we've come, where we've said that we would use in these films a number of knowledge products that would actually address violence frontally, so that visually young people within the country are provided with a number of scenarios in which they are able to reflect on the violent episodes, as well as to use those episodes as a matter of reflection and introspection, so that they themselves can come to some decisions in relation to what is required for themselves to abstain from violence, and also for the country itself to have a diminished level of violence.
We were interrupted by COVID. Did that set us back a lot?
Yes, the COVID pandemic set us back significantly, obviously not being able to congregate, not being able to do the types of activities that we want to do, particularly at the level of communities. Those were some of the issues which affected us. Of course, what we were able to do, though, was to enhance our community interventions through our national parenting programs, which we did online to be able to attract a higher number of persons that we would have normally engaged with. So we are back on track, Peter, in terms of trying to get these messages out. We are seeing the benefits. We have actually seen the completion of a number of these programs, and we have seen the involvement in a number of our young people in the programs that we are doing as we attempt to end the violence now. And of course, I think as we know, violence is something that is pervasive. It happens in the family, it happens outside the home. But one of the things that we cannot diminish is the severe psychological consequences that they have on persons who are either the victims or the perpetrators of these crimes. And therefore, what we want, Barbados as a society, to actually reflect on the violence, reflect on the messages that we have put out, which will be seen all over Barbados in relation to the double stop, the benches which we have put out where we have these anti-violence messages, our social media campaign, which we promote the anti-violence messages, our work in the schools, and for all of us as a country to come together as a means of reducing the scourge of violence in the country.
And while COVID might have stopped us, you look highly motivated and energized to lead the anti-violence charge, Mr. No problem.
I am indeed.
No problem. We go to Sharon Rose-Gittens, who is the president of the Barbados Association of Professional Social Workers. How did you get involved in this on your organization?
I want to share it being Social Work Month. It's definitely a joy to be part of this initiative, and being part of it meant that we share the same philosophy as it relates to end violence now. I think, as Mr. Hunte shared, it's a situation where social workers are placed not only in schools, but they're in the community. They're also part of the ministry, and they're growing in numbers. So once we're able to embrace the social worker and embrace the opportunity that they may have within the community and what they're seeing, then clearly it makes sense for us to be part. And it's a growing partnership, it's a wonderful partnership, and they're doing fantastic work. So being in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth on this initiative made much sense. And I think the messaging, as Mr. Hunte shared, they have been doing it in so many diverse ways that this is another opportunity for us to highlight we can end the violence now once we tune in to the messages, and definitely the psychological aspect of it. So yes, we are here, and we will stay here as long as we are together in this.
And from a personal perspective, looking at your bio, I saw you, and I've met you many moons ago, back in the 80s. You have a master's in social work. You are a lecturer at university. You're interested in even writing a book. Share some of those thoughts with us quickly.
Right. Past lecturer at UWI. Those years ended in 2018, actually, before COVID, and part-time lecturer. But my master's, yes, in social work, but my first master's is in educational psychology, where I looked at the perpetrator and his or her actions as relates to learned behavior. So once it's learned, then it's something that can be unlearned. Add to that, yes, I have this dream. Thanks, Peter. I have this dream, and you read my bio well, this dream of writing a book called The Milestones of a Perpetrator. And it's really looking at that perpetrator not just taking responsibility for their actions from childhood all the way up to an adult, but also recognizing the family influence in creating and designing this particular perpetrator. The other motivation for that is I think our victims have done enough. Our victims or survivors of domestic violence have done enough, and it's time that we put some onus on the perpetrator who's out there, who is willing and who recognize that their behavior needs to stop. Then let's educate, let's have a conversation, let's deal with it.
Sharon, Rose-Gittens, thank you very much. Shaquani Hunte, Executive Member of the Barbados Youth Development Council. How did you get involved?
How I would say that, well, when I started, it wasn't as official as the others. I heard something and I decided to say something. I know that sounds simple, but that is really the first step. Start by believing. I did that program with Now Women about 2 years ago in the week of International Women's Week. We're in this week again, and it was so impactful. They said start by believing, because that was the first step in believing the victim. Because sometimes people tell you about something, we don't believe them instantly because we can't believe that person could be violent or that person could be abusive. But when you think about those three small words and you just start by believing the person who has said that they're being a victim or something happened to them, it makes the process so much easier. If they decide if they want to get charges, how they want to go forward and get counseling, it really starts by understanding what they want to do, the pathway they want to go, and then how you can help them or what facilities you can show them to help them. So I really just got through into this. But what I can say is that I was able to take what knowledge I did have and adapt it to help those persons.
Thank you very much, Shaquani Hunte.
Thank you.
And now, the moment in time. As I say, thanks ladies and gents. We'll now be viewing the premiere event. The film, The Scream, about domestic violence. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Any violence, verbal and physical aspects, any violence, sexual abuse and neglect.
You could do this to me! Why you do this to me? Logan! You trying to mess with me? You trying to get me out of here, Logan? That's what I'm trying to do! Leave me alone! Yeah, man. What's going on, man? Hey, are you, man? Yeah, things kind of all right, man. Just trying to keep my head level. You see me doing a Trisha? You get that information from? Oh, IG. She picture? Man, you know he's a man. No, I do not make no sport. No woman cannot disrespect me! She's searching my phone! Clearly got it with me! Man, you know my head is getting hot sometimes? You listening, man? You know when growing up, you see a lot of foolishness. When I was growing up, you see a lot of nonsense. And it just get to me. You speaking righteous, man? My man. If it was my mother, no man! And I repeat, no man can put your hand on my mother! Or if it's my sister, no man can put your hand on my sister! I just really don't know what's going through my head sometimes. Sometimes, I just get so hot. So hot. And I just feel real shame. And I just don't know how to fix it with Trisha. Man, I hear you, man. Because you see this thing called domestic violence, I admit it. I need help. Yes. Change got to start with me first, but I can't do it alone. I know you're speaking the truth, but don't leave me alone. Please, please, help me, the man. Help me.
This is not how you behave in a civilized society. Zero tolerance for gun violence. Zero tolerance approach to gun violence in this country.
Go to school to learn, don't go to fight.
Say something. I am a man, and I'm not afraid to say this. When it comes to domestic violence, women are take men too. Women think domestic violence is all the time to say, a lady getting beat, she getting punched, she getting slapped, she getting cut, she getting uppercut. Men too. Me too. And they have problems with it. Women that take me too, women that take you too. We shouldn't really look at it, the difference between a woman and a man. But women that's beat you. And they do not like it, it's all wanted. Women that's beat you over here in Barbados, all over the world, women that's beat you. And they gonna look like a punk, or they gonna look like an idiot if I go to court and press charges against you.
Yeah, the children can get involved too in the mental health as well. So, have to be careful with that too. So yes, both women get abused and men. But the thing is that if you see someone being abused, if you hear the neighbor next door, a child screaming, don't say that my business, that my problem. You report it because you can save a child's life, you can save a mother's life and get him abused. So
you can also save a father's life if it gets abused.
A father's life. Thank you.
This is not how you behave in a civilized society. Zero tolerance for gun violence. Zero tolerance approach to gun violence in this country.
Go to school to learn, don't go to fight. As you grow in life, you got to do things right. Tell your friends to do good deeds.
Days when I feel lost and directionless, placed under immense pressure to decide what my future will be and what my success will look like.
These emotions aren't unique to me. Many of us suffer with these feelings. It is, however, important that we reach out. Talk to someone.
Make connections. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It's one of the bravest and hardest things you'll ever have to do.
We are not alone. We are stronger
than we think.
This message is brought to you by the Youth Support Hotline, Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. Call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
Welcome back to the End Violence live panel discussion series. We've just viewed the first short film, The Scream, about domestic violence, which was just over 9 minutes in duration. And remember, if you just joined us, we have an esteemed panel to review that, led by Mr. Cleviston Hunte, Director of Youth Affairs, Sharon Rose-Gittens, Mrs. She is the president of the Barbados Association of Professional Social Workers, and Shaquani Hunte, she's the executive member of the Barbados Youth Development Council. Let's start with the ladies first, because the victim in this was well, some would argue that the man was also a victim. So, your thoughts, Shaquani?
Well, when I saw the clip, I thought about how this is almost seen as a norm in Barbados. That parents, boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, they may fight and scuffle and think it's okay. But it is not okay. This is not the norm. This is not the standard. A person hurting you or attacking you because you look through their phone, that is not a standard. That is not something that you should be allowing a person to do to you. When they're saying it was an accident, they didn't mean to do it, yes, they meant to do it because they did it. Apologizing does not make it go away, in my mind. Because they say they're sorry, that does not make it okay. That doesn't mean that you can stay. They will change. They could change, but maybe not fast enough to save your life. So in a situation like this, I would recommend the person to wait until the person has cooled down, because sometimes even trying to leave in a moment like that where they're so hot, you may get hurt even more. As soon as that person has cooled down, call your friends, your family, and get yourself out of there. If you're worried about clothes, shoes, fridge, your house, all those things can be purchased again, but your life cannot be returned if you get hurt or if you stay in the situation, because even though it seems like he calmed down, he didn't really calm down. He just started to talk on the phone. Imagine if she tried to go to the door. He could have thrown the phone, he could have hurt her even more than she was hurt, in this scenario. And this is the reality. Some persons are in situations where they're so afraid to leave. The fear of leaving is even stronger or more painful than actually physically getting hurt. They're terrified that if they leave, that they will find them, or if they leave, they will hurt somebody else that is related to them. Sometimes these perpetrators try to keep the children, so they will let the mother, the father leave, but they will keep the children to hold them onto the scenario, the situation. And that in itself is very dangerous, because even though you can leave, they will make the situation seem like you can't take my child. I'm a parent too. And a mother or father would not want to leave their child in a situation that's harmful, so they will almost go back into the scenario, trying to protect them, take the blows for them. But I would definitely advise, seek help. There's a lot of places out there that you can go and get help. You can go and get help at a police station. You can go and get help at the Guidance Counselor Association, the Social Work Center. There's a lot of persons. Furthermore, if you just Google it, you can get help.
Okay, Shaquani, thank you very much. Your thoughts, Sharon?
My thoughts, and I'm going to pick up from where Shaquana stated, there's Google it, so you know the age of Shaquana. You can Google it, it is there, and you can find the help. When I saw the short video, I recognized that it just focuses on one particular aspect of domestic violence, and that particular aspect is one that deals primarily with the tension phase of it, and then, as mentioned earlier, the calming down, remorseful stage. And at this point in time, for anyone out there who watching that video, it may have conjured up some feelings of hurt or pain, or have taken you back to a particular spot. We want to say to you, keep watching, because we're not going to stay in that space. The outstanding parts for me is also the perpetrator asking to seek, help me. We don't know who he's talking to at the other end of the phone. And imagine years ago, because domestic violence is something that existed long before cell phones. But here it is, he's able to have a conversation with this person, who may be another male whom he understands, will listen to him, and also will be able to have a conversation with him. The other point about the video, I think you would recognize the power control. She stays on the ground most of the time. He is standing up, and he moves away as well. But it's only when he looks at the phone, gets a call, then he sits down, really. That's the sense of saying, okay, what have I done? And also being willing to do something about it. The other aspect, and there are other aspects of the entire video that we can pull, but I really want to explain to persons, that's the tension phase of it. When he mentioned, and I'm sure you saw it, nobody can do this to my mother, nor my sister. Hello, what are you doing to your partner? Where is that learning coming from? And there's no mention of a father. Is it a situation where you say you cannot do it to my mother, can't do it to my sister, and you cannot do it and should not do it to my father as well? And he himself should not be seen only as a perpetrator. I want to sort of close off there, but there's going to be more discussion, definitely more discussion, because it's a powerful message as we are sharing to end violence, and it can be done once we focus in some more on the perpetrator. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much, Sharon Rose-Gittens. Your thoughts, Mr. Hunt?
Yeah, of course I endorse the sentiments expressed by my fellow panelists. Very powerful, very rich. In viewing the film, my first thought was that the film really depicts a classical domestic violence scene with a male perpetrator and female victim. And I use the word classical because I don't want in a situation like this that we're stereotyping males, because it could easily have been the other way. A female perpetrator and a male victim. And we know that there's a lot of research now that shows that men are also victims of domestic abuse. So that's the first takeaway that I took from the video. Visually though, I was struck by those images that were so poignant. The clenched fists, the angry face, the lady, you can actually feel the pain of the lady as she lies on the floor, actually prostrate. And you hear the fact that this is a learned behavior, because he's talking about what has happened to him in his past, the nonsense that he has endured in his life growing up. And again, it shows us the impact of these experiences on children, how people learn this behavior and then they're able then to perpetrate it and move it to the victims.
You believe that might be more learned than generational?
Well,
it's
a bit of both.
generational.
It is generational, generational in the sense that part of the challenge for domestic violence is the whole issue, as Sharon was pointing out, of power and control, which in our society would have come through the whole patriarchic system, where men was in control. So here it is, he's saying, well, no woman can talk to me like this, because I am the one who has the power in this situation. And if she does, I'm going to use my fists and my physical strength in order to subdue her. Yeah? So those are some of the powerful images that came over to me. But also the sense of sadness and the smooth that is created of violence. One where, in a sense, he himself is a victim, particularly emotionally, because you get the sense that he has that, he received that kind of emotional abuse, which he is now dishing out to his partner. And ironically, the incident is happening in an intimate domestic setting, where the man is supposed to love and protect his partner, but ironically, it's the other side. Violence is actually being meted out to the lady. What also is important for me also too, as social worker, and I didn't say at the jump, Peter, that I have also been in the past a facilitator for a male batterers intervention program using the Duluth model. I didn't say that at the jump when we started the program. So I have seen these situations, countless situations like what I witnessed in the video. But what is important also too is the cyclic nature of the whole incident, moving from violence to that calm, and then to that whole section where there seemingly is some remorse and that cry out for help. And as a social worker, for us looking for interventions, the points of interventions, that is really, 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 really extremely critical. The support systems are important, they are required, but here is a point where a young man has come to the point where you can actually provide help and intervention, because he's actually crying up for it. And whether the intervention is provided is the other part of it, which is why we have the kinds of programs that we have now with our national youth hotlines, our mentorship programs, in which we can provide those kinds of supports for persons who are perpetrators and who are victims of domestic violence.
The thoughts there of the Director of Youth Affairs, Mr. Cleviston Hunte, and we also heard in this segment from Sharon Rose-Gittens and from Shaquani Hunte on the Anti-Violence series, and we'll be back in just a moment.
The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment's mentorship program, Project Protege, is once again opening the call for suitable mentors and mentees. The program aims to provide youth with positive role models and support, create a safe space where youth can find encouragement and guidance, connect youth with individuals who can help when they are facing everyday challenges. Do you know a young person between 12 and 17 who could benefit from targeted guidance? Are you a responsible, caring and committed individual over the age of 21? Then Project Protege Portage may be the right fit for you. Consider joining us and become a partner in the positive development of youth here in Barbados. If you or someone you know is interested in joining Project Portage as a mentor or a mentee, please contact the ministry at 535-3835 or send an email to ydp@barbados.gov.bb. That's 535-3835 or email ydp@barbados.gov.bb.
Welcome back to the Andy Valence live panel discussion series. Let us continue our discussion. I want to know if underlying factors contribute to a person's propensity for violence. Do you believe so, like childhood trauma, certain belief systems about hierarchy and domination?
I would like to say and go a little deeper than that, because remember, there's a lot of research out there that speaks to what they see in the home then being perpetuated in aspects of bullying within the school system. So here it is that what is taking place, I'm a child seeing the abuse happening within my family, and then at school now, or even when I get into a relationship, then I focus on basically repeating that action because this is how I get what I want. So in terms of the foundation of it, as you mentioned, Peter, yes, there's those areas that would impact on what we're seeing, but also to recognize that not all perpetrators are going to be remorseful, as we've seen in this particular video. There's some perpetrators who frankly believes that their partner, and I think we talk heterosexual, but we recognize that there is domestic violence in all types of relationships. So I will say partner in respect of that. For us to recognize that there are those persons who figure it is their right to treat their partner in whatever manner in which they think they should. And there's absolutely no remorse. So being able to make that cry for help, as seen in the video, is important. And that's the perpetrator we can work easier with than the perpetrator who says, I will beat you. I will treat you like this because I have a right to do it. And it's then left up to this victim, survivor, with help from others. She or he has to move away from that person because that person, hands down, will not show any remorse whatsoever.
I want to ask a question. People resort to violence to solve disputes, but does it ever solve any problems?
In my opinion, no. I think it creates more problems. It's almost like a ripple effect. You think that violence will solve the issue, but really all the violence does is make this negative thought or feeling attached to the issue. So the issue can never be resolved because every time it comes up, the anger for that moment, the feelings for that moment will be re-triggered again, and then you're back in the cycle of violence. So even though they think violence can end an issue or solve a problem, it really makes the problem more concrete, more cemented into the minds. And then persons may not even know how to solve it because they're so terrified about the feelings in that moment or the trauma that they can't even think about how to get out of the problem or navigate it.
I want to throw this one too. The panel can answer by, from start, Mr. Hunte said it was part of a male center that dealt with males being affected. This is interesting. How does it affect one's quality of life?
Quality of life, okay. Well, just to go back, the question that you asked first, Peter, then come forward. You know, in the definition of violence, you're talking about the intentional use of force against someone. So if you are using force intentionally, there could never be a good outcome.
Quality of life.
So I just wanted to make that clear in relation to that. And that's why we say end the violence, because at the end of the day, you are either going to impact the person in terms of some bodily harm, grievous bodily harm, or it's going to be something psychological, emotional that the person acts out. And if you come up in a home, for example, because you know we said behavior is learned, where you observe constantly instances of these types of events, episodes, then first of all, you almost have no regard for the person who is weak, who is seen as the victim of that thing. So psychologically, it has an impact then on how you relate to that person who is victim, who is vulnerable. Okay? Then the other thing also too is the cost. I mean, there's a significant cost that is associated also too with the victim and victimization. And you will hear from the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, for example, reports of the cost that the social and the economic costs of people coming to the hospital for maybe gunshot wounds or physical wounds or whatever, So I'm saying all that so that, the public, listening public can understand that there is nothing to be gained from being involved in violence behavior, right?
Can I add to that as well? In terms of, you have a situation at times where the victim becomes the perpetrator because of what is taking place. So you are learning violence as well as going through it. So that switch also takes place in our minds. Sometimes it's like you didn't like it, but then once you get so conditioned, figuring that this is the way in which it can be resolved, you have those persons, unfortunately, who were once victims now becoming perpetrators. And we've had a number of cases, and these would have been news articles, where females have been charged in terms of the violence against the male perpetrator. And at that time, really and truly, that one stab, that one hurt really ended the life of that particular person. And when it came to the courts, then you realize that that person was a victim of domestic violence for many years. But when it reached the point where that particular other partner has had enough, then the switch happens. And unfortunately, to end the violence has also been the end of the person's life, the perpetrator's life.
Okay, some thoughts there for Sharon Rose-Gittens. Are we going to take a break and come back with the continuation of the discussion series on end violence in just a moment?
The Youth Support Hotline is here to provide you with the assistance that you need. It is a safe space for those who feel as though they have nowhere to turn and need assistance that may not be readily available. Our trained staff are available to provide you with any support that you may need, any time of day or night. Our lines are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This support takes the form of qualified psychiatrists and other key mental health and wellness bodies here in Barbados. You don't have to suffer in silence. Any challenge that you may be facing, big or small, we are here to support you. If you or someone you know needs support and are unsure about where to turn, call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
This message is brought to you by the Youth Support Hotline, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. Call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
Back to the End Violence, a live panel discussion series right here on CBC TV 8 in partnership with the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. I sense from the film, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that the silent suffering of many is heartbreaking, and that we only really begin to hear their experiences once the conversation starts to happen and come out in the open. Do you sense that?
Oh yes, and what I would say, basically the records that we have speaks of reported instances of violence, but there is that argument and proof that says you have more unreported incidents as relates to the males being victims of violence than females. So yes, once we start to talk, and then I think you'll remember during COVID, there was, after COVID, the discussions in which families were going through aspects of domestic violence, gender-based violence within the household. So yes, for sure, once we start talking, there'll be more discussion, more awareness, But basically there is that fear, and there's that point where persons will decide not to go to the court, or they're fearful of what the court may have to offer. And as my fellow panelists mentioned, the children within the household, that's a different type of relationship and a different strength and boldness of the survivor to come out for the sake of the children.
Shaquani?
What I will say is that sometimes we have to listen to the silence. I know that sounds strange, but a lot of victims, they don't say anything. But if you knew them before the violence started, you know something is wrong. You may not know what is wrong, but what you would do, what I would recommend to do is listen to the nothing. Because sometimes listening to nothing may save someone's life. Because you may realize that they're more reserved. They're not talking as much. They're very quiet. When you go to touch their hand, they may pull away. There's always a sign that you can see, but you may not be recognizing that it is a sign. So what I will say is that you know your friends best, you know your family best, you know your children best. You can recognize when something is wrong. You may not know it's violence at the start, but you may be able to recognize that something is wrong and you need to investigate it. You need to monitor it. And because you are constantly asking them, not even if you're okay. I remember doing a series asking persons if they were okay. And you know what the response was? Do you really want to know if I'm okay, or this is just like a thing for the Instagram? And I said, no, I really want to know if you're okay. And I found when I said that segment, they really opened up. So we really need to touch base with people and actually show genuine care and sincerity.
I want to go ahead.
Okay, and then you shared, touch base, and in some instances you are shy away, you are hidden, you have not seen your family member. There is that point where it's up to you as a family member to do that check-in. So I just wanted to support what you said in terms of there may be a touch or whatever.
They kind of try to separate you from the persons who keep you strong.
Yes. So check-in, do that check-in.
And I wanted to add and to support what you're saying, Shaquani and Sharon Rose, because as we know historically, domestic violence is hidden from men. Even in terms of its definition, it is something that occurs within the intimate confines of your home, And there are a number of facets of that violence, that power and control. And isolation is one of those things.
Correct.
So as you're pointing out, when you see some person is withdrawing, someone is denying them the opportunity to come to mix with their friends, you know that that's an instance of abuse. Because the abuse is not only physical.
It's the mental,
it's also emotional, it's also mental, it's also psychological. Anything that demeans that person, that partner in that relationship is domestic abuse.
Do you believe that the adage, if you see something, say something, applies here?
Definitely.
Definitely.
If you see something, say something. And even if in this modern era of 21-year-olds and 20, you may see or hear, or you may be following something, basically let's report it.
You have to say something.
Yeah.
Because the decision between not saying something and saying something can save a life, can protect a person. Because we have so many times where persons witness something and they always say, that's your mother, I ain't getting that. That's your father, that's your wife. We have to stop that, because that is my wife, that is my mother. That doesn't mean that I should be deserving of getting beat or abused. That is not the way. We have to cut out that stigma and go back to the precedent. See something, say something, you will stop something, basically.
Yeah.
Mr. Hunte,
say something, but all our senses. See something, hear something, smell something, touch something is important than you say, because you may not necessarily walk in and see this happening in terms of the person's face, but you may recognize when you go into the house, there's something that's a little odd, or you may hear a conversation and you may be the neighbor hearing what's going on, or on the bus hearing a conversation that's. So I will add to the see something, hear something.
I also want to add in, because this is extremely important, because we are dealing in a situation of power of control, power and vulnerability, where there are persons who are not able to speak for themselves. They themselves are in situations of poor vulnerability. You know, a female may be dependent on a male for support, or vice versa, and therefore he or she cannot speak out because whatever support is being provided will be taken away.
They will cut away the money, take away the phone.
Yes.
So things where they can ask for help.
Acts of tactics of power and control. Taking away the phone, etc.
Your property. And we can definitely say and compliment the Shaw Act, which now considers domestic violence within the workplace. Domestic violence and us having a response to that. So that the Shaw Act now recognizes that you may have employers, employees who are going through acts of domestic violence within their home. And we as employers do have a responsibility to keep our employees safe as well.
Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with the wrap up in just a moment.
And the violence, verbal and physical aspects, and the violence, sexual abuse and neglect, and the violence, emotional and mental effects, and the violence. Violence not good for this country. It's depressing and hurting you and me. Violence not good for this country. Time for change and rearrange socially. No, we not need it. We not need it. We not need it. Yes, we gonna end it. We not need it. We not need it. We not need it. Yes, we gonna end it. And the violence, verbal and physical aspects, and the violence, sexual abuse and neglect, and the violence, emotional and mental effects, and the violence.
Welcome back to the Anti Violence live panel discussion series. I'm now going to ask you to give a wrap up in terms of, how do you end violence? Or you give your thoughts, your perspectives.
Yeah, well, as I said, the ministry has, through this program, we have created a number of knowledge products, which are these short films, which we are going to take in a number of different spaces so that we can have people see, view. So the films act as a mirror so that people can reflect on what they are seeing, as also to reflect on their behavior current, and look at ways in which they can reduce their own violent thoughts, and that they can also reduce the violent acts that they are doing. And that is simply what we are hoping to do, because the point is, I think what we are seeing as a ministry is that we want to have a zero tolerance approach to crime and violence within the country, particularly for the benefit of our young people. And therefore, as we go through the country with these films, we want the conversation to continue, because we know, Peter, as you said, people are not going to just end just like that. You have to come to a situation from pre-contemplation to contemplation, and then therefore, then we can look at those points for intervention.
The final thoughts.
Thank you.
There, Director Hunt, your thoughts, Sharon Rose-Gittens?
Final thoughts are quite simple, and it's words of thanks. Thanks for the collaboration. Thanks for the opportunity to show to you, listeners, a beautiful film that also highlights the perpetrator taking responsibility at the end as well as during the film, where the perpetrator recognizes within himself that I need help. Sometimes I get hot, was the words that he would have used. And to those persons watching, and to those perpetrators out there who within themselves know that what they're doing is hurting and harming another human being that you have not created, and you think that you need the help, just reach out. The numbers have been shared throughout the evening, throughout the day. Feel free to reach out on those numbers. So for me, as I close, I say thank you, thanks for the partnership, and I'm sure that we can make this place peaceful, more peaceful than what we're seeing right now.
Your final thoughts, Shaquani Hunt?
My final thoughts is that start by believing the victims. Regardless, male or female, just start by believing. And a small step like that can save a life.
The final thoughts there of Shaquani Hunte. You also heard in this program from Sharon Rose-Gittens, the president of the Barbados Association of Professional Social Workers. You also heard from the Director of Youth Affairs, Mr. Cleviston Hunte, as we discussed. And you were watching the first in a 5-part live panel discussion series on anti-violence right here on TV8 in partnership with the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment. We reviewed a short film on domestic violence titled The Scream. Next week, we'll be watching another short film as we continue our anti-violence panel discussion series right here on TV8 and on YouTube at the Division of Youth Affairs. And remember, this program is repeated on Thursdays at 9:03 p.m. So join us again next week at 4 p.m. right here on TV8 for another program on anti-violence. Have a great day.